You're listening to CherryPickin Entertainment.
Throw me the ball and watch what I do with it.
You are now tuned into the CherryPickin podcast with your host, Andre Cherry.
Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome into the CherryPickin podcast. I'm your host, Andre Cherry, and on today's episode, I want to talk about a few topics within college football that are relevant for this week. We've got Michigan and Jim Harbaugh stuff still going on and still lingering. We've got Deion Sanders having a press conference just the other day and some of the drama around that. And then I also want to get into a story about a college football player who had some issues with the school that he was at due to an agent getting involved and kind of mucking stuff up for him. So on this episode, we'll just kind of talk about some of the topics that are relevant for today. And if you're like me and you love college football, we're only 3 weeks away from the start of the season. I can't really believe it that the season is almost here and it'll be in our lives for basically through the winter months. We'll have football just nonstop every week. College football action will be back in 3 short weeks, so I'm pumped for that. But why don't we go ahead and dive right into this episode. My first topic here, Michigan and Jim Harbaugh. Last Wednesday, if you were following the news, the NCAA announced a 4-year show cause order for former Michigan Wolverines head coach Jim Harbaugh for impermissible contact with recruits and players while access was restricted during the COVID-19 pandemic. The order bans Harbaugh from college athletics until August 2028. Harbaugh departed the college football ranks at the end of last football season, where he saw his alma mater, Michigan, win the national championship. Jim Harbaugh is now the head coach of the Los Angeles Chargers. Harbaugh engaged in unethical conduct, failed to promote an atmosphere of compliance, and violated head coach responsibilities and obligations. From the NCAA's perspective, Harbaugh displayed an intentional disregard for their legislation, and in the NCAA's eyes, he was unethical in his conduct during that time. In other words, Harbaugh was out here doing what he wanted, and damn the consequences. Harbaugh was pretty much punking the NCAA. He punked the NCAA. So it felt as if the NCAA had to respond in some manner by issuing a 4-year show cause, which in my opinion doesn't hold any weight at this point. Harbaugh is gone. He's in the NFL. How is this punishing him? Basically, a show cause penalty means that a school wanting to hire a coach, in this instance Jim Harbaugh, must appear before the NCAA Committee on Infractions to explain why it wants to do so. The NCAA's order for Jim Harbaugh started on August 7th and runs through August 6, 2028. It requires a school wanting to hire Harbaugh to suspend him for the first full season. After that, Harbaugh would still be barred from athletics-related activities, including team travel, practice, video study, recruiting, and team meetings until the order expires. It's reported that Harbaugh's current contract with the Chargers was signed for 5 years, so this really wouldn't be an issue for him if he were to stay in the NFL for the full length of contract. I also don't expect for Harbaugh to ever go back down to the college ranks. What's the point? He's already won a national championship at his alma mater, and I don't see him going to any other school on the college level ever again. Jim's a Michigan man, and he delivered Michigan a national championship in the college football playoff era and restored the school's glory. His job is done. He can rest now. Harbaugh is also 60 years old, so I would think after his current run in the NFL ends, he will probably just retire and he'll enjoy his life, maybe be on the beach with his wife and his kids. Harbaugh's lawyer jumped out at this when the news broke out, and he actually had a pretty funny response to everything, and this comes from ESPN. Harbaugh's attorney Tom Marr said, and I quote, "The way I see it, from Coach Harbaugh's perspective, today's Committee on Infraction decision is like being in college and getting a letter from your high school saying you've been suspended because you didn't sign your yearbook," Mars posted on social media. "If I were in Coach Harbaugh's shoes and had an $80 million contract as head coach of the Chargers, I wouldn't pay any attention to the findings of a kangaroo court. I wouldn't pay any attention to the findings of a kangaroo court which claims to represent the principles of the nation's most flagrant repeat violator of the federal antitrust laws." End quote. Now, I do get that the NCAA wanted to send a message to other coaches that they aren't going to stand for any of their coaches not abiding by their rules, but I think this is pretty silly considering Jim Harbaugh is long gone from Ann Arbor now. But it is funny that Harbaugh will be coming back to Michigan Stadium for the Wolverines' season opener on August 31st. The former coach accepted an invite to be the team's honorary captain for Michigan's home opener against Fresno State. So it's pretty funny and just pretty weird at the same time, some of the controversy that continues to surround Jim Harbaugh on the college level, even though he is no longer a coach on the collegiate ranks anymore. He is now in the NFL, so it's pretty silly that this all had to happen, but I guess it is what it is at the end of the day. The next topic I wanted to talk about with you all is just Coach Deion Sanders, and he's just such a polarizing figure. He's such a big personality. Coach Sanders had a pretty tense news conference at certain moments last Friday. Coach Prime is kicking off his second season in Boulder, and the pressure is definitely on. And I honestly wonder if he's feeling it. The Buffs are now on people's radars this season after having low expectations last season. Coach Prime and his team surpassed those expectations in many ways, but now folks want to see if Deion will take things to the next level in year 2. Sanders just seemed pretty agitated, and he snapped back when a reporter asked him about his bolstered offensive line. And I quote, "What does bolstered mean?" Sanders interrupted, suggesting improved was a better word, because I don't know all that bolstered stuff. I've never used that in a sentence. Let's say that. We improved our offensive line, end quote. There was another reporter from a CBS affiliate in Denver who couldn't even fire his question off to Sanders before the coach shut him down. And this is coming from ESPN. Coach Sanders didn't go into details about his beef with the national network, but it's closely aligned with 247 Sports, which this summer detailed a judicial judgment against his son Shiloh Sanders, who's a safety on the team, and his subsequent bankruptcy filing. Sanders did try and make it better for the reporter from CBS by saying, "I love you and respect you, but what they did was foul," end quote. And this also isn't mentioned in the ESPN article, but it's been widely seen on social media how sports broadcaster Danny Kanell, who is employed by CBS Sports, has sparred with Sanders' sons on the X machine. Kanell also seemed to hold a grudge against Deion Sanders, and I remember when Colorado had a tough loss against Colorado State, he was beside himself with joy. And this comes from Twitter. "Imagine that," Kanell tweeted. "Appears that Jay Norvell, who is the Colorado State head football coach, was spending the week studying film and game planning instead of doing interviews and selling sunglasses." Because if you remember, Deion has I believe a sunglasses line, and he wears shades anywhere he goes, and I think they were selling them. So it just felt like, from Kanell's perspective, Deion is just a salesman type guy. He's selling us on football, but he's also selling his brand, his merchandise. So as soon as Colorado lost, Kanell had that tweet drafted. It was just waiting to go. He just had to replace the head coach, Jay Norvell, with whoever was going to win. He had to insert head coach name here, but it just like some people were waiting for Colorado to lose, and they just were beside themselves when that opportunity finally presented itself. Because of who Deion Sanders is, he attracts a lot of attention, both positively and negatively. He's a polarizing figure. The press conference that he had on Friday had an entertainment element to it, as I'm sure a lot of his press conferences do. It felt like I was watching some sort of reality show when I saw the press conference for myself, because not every moment was tense, and at some moments I was laughing. Other moments I was engaged when he was talking about his players, and you could tell how much love he has for them and respect he has for his players. You could feel that through the YouTube machine that I was watching the press conference on. As all good coaches do, they take the heat off their players, and this press conference, like many of his pressers, made me feel as if he wants to be standing in front of his men. He wants to be a leader. He wants to take all the heat, all the attention, and take it off of them. This conference was reminiscent to Mike Gundy's, where he stands out in front and routinely defends his players. The only difference is Mike Gundy backs it up with wins. And that's not a dig, that's just a fact. Mike Gundy has great seasons and great success at Oklahoma State. They win 10-plus games many seasons. I think there's only been a handful of seasons where he hasn't won at least 10 games. I think maybe 2, if I'm remembering off my top of my head. But with Sanders, I think he's just such a great magnet. But I hope that he can help his team improve from 4 wins last season. In my opinion, in this day and age, we love a star. But it also feels like we love when a star fails and falls. And Deion Sanders is a star that loves the attention. He loves to talk. He's a good personality. He attracts a lot of attention. And it just feels like Deion pushes back a lot against reporters who may be easy marks. But these reporters are doing their jobs, which doesn't seem fair to the reporters. But I also understand the pressure Deion Sanders is facing constantly. I'm not saying it's right, but I just hope that he's not creating a hostile environment over there once the season gets going. We are 3 weeks away from the start of the season, and there's no reason to come out like this. What's going to happen if Colorado has a terrible season? Is Coach Prime going to continue to be combative? If Coach Prime and his team backs it up on the field, then I guess none of this really matters at the end of the day. But I'm just hoping Coach Prime doesn't get dogged out this season. I think it's a positive to have him in college football, especially as a black coach. But they will come for him, and by they, I mean the media. They will come for him if they have another lackluster season. One thing that I really appreciated, that the way that Sanders ended the press conference, he ended it by saying this, and I quote, "The majority of you have done a wonderful job, and I thank you for your support, for your love, for your impact, for fighting against the nonsenses of life that we sometimes have to cope with. And we all know why we have to cope with that. Too much is given, much is required, and I'm thankful for all that is given, but I understand the requirement, so I appreciate that. It comes along with it. So you can't want God to bless you and the enemy not to stress you. It's going to be a part of it. So you guys remember that when you're journeying through life, if you want to be blessed, somebody's going to try and stress you. This is going to be a phenomenal year. I'm telling you what I know, not what I heard. God bless." End quote. Deion Sanders is a very special guy. I just hope that he can back it up. That's all I'm saying. With that, we'll take a short timeout. I'll be right back. On the other side, I just want to talk about a NIL transfer story that went bad. Don't go anywhere. Cherry Pickin Podcast will be right back.
Want to know what life is really like after the game is all over? Real athletes are here to share their true stories of adversity and triumph every week on After Orange Slices. Even if you don't like sports, pro athletes, former college stars, celebrities, coaches, public speakers, doctors, and all kinds of experts join the show, and there's a little bit of something for everybody. Join me, Bridget, for a slice of inspiration, plus your everyday sports news sprinkled in. New episodes every Friday at 8 a.m. Pacific Standard Time, available anywhere you get your podcasts.
Basketball is back. And with that comes joy, tension, heartbreak, buzzer beaters, and elation. It's time to be courtside for every one of those moments, no matter where your team is playing. Short Court specializes in making replica and custom basketball courts for your home, office, sports cave to decorate your walls with all those memories. If you have a picture, we can recreate it. Featured in the 2021 UMich Holiday Gift Guide, short courts are made using real wood. We frame and give them an epoxy finish to protect the new centerpiece of your memorabilia collection. With previous customers including Northern Kentucky University, Southern Utah University, 199 Apparel, The Perimeter Podcast with Adam Morrison, and many more celebrating the careers and retirements of their coaches, it's time you visit shortcourts.com for more info and a gallery of our work, or you can send us an email, info@shortcourts.com. Be sure to find us on social media, just search for Short Courts. It's time to bring the home court home.
Hey everybody, welcome back to the show. Now, real quick before we go, I do want to talk about this story that I saw on ESPN about Arkansas running back Rodney Hill, and he had some issues with an agent, and he felt like he was forced to leave FSU, had to go to Arkansas. And so this comes directly from ESPN, from David Hale, ESPN staff writer over there. Former Florida State running back Rodney Hill blames a bad agent for his circuitous path through the transfer portal to Arkansas. Hill, who served as the Seminoles' number 3 tailback and worked on kick returns last season, told Arkansas media Friday that he was forced to leave FSU after coaches there learned an agent had been contacting other teams to gauge interest in Hill before he had entered the transfer portal. Hill said his parents had hired the agent, who then texted coaches from other programs purporting to be Hill. So this agent was acting as if he was Rodney Hill, reaching out to other coaches. And it's a good life lesson. What you do can come back to you. So, you're reaching out to other college football coaches. It's certainly probably a network, I would assume. I'm not saying that all coaches are in contact with one another, but those interactions got back to Florida State. The Florida State coaches found out that they have a player on their roster who's texting out to other coaches to see if there's any interest. That's you could say it's like betrayal of trust. I mean, it's just kind of shady. You don't really do that. And so because of this agent who did that, it got Hill into all sorts of trouble. And here's a quote from Hill, and I quote, "When it got back to the head coach, I had to leave Florida State," Hill told the Fort Smith Southwest Times Record. A Florida State source confirmed the basic details of Hill's account, but could not say whether there were any additional mitigating circumstances surrounding his departure. For his career at FSU, Hill had 77 carries for 334 yards and 2 touchdowns. He had 5 catches for 83 yards in 2 seasons at Florida State after arriving in 2022 as a 4-star recruit. This path that he had to take after the coaches found out, he had to leave Florida State in December. He committed to Florida A&M. He then decommitted after A&M's coach Willie Simmons left to become the running back coach at Duke. Hill then committed to Miami. He decommitted from there, and then he returned to Florida A&M, where he said he took classes and he worked out with the team before entering the transfer portal once again. During that time when I had to leave, Hill said, I wasn't trying to leave. I didn't want to leave, so I just had to, and the portal was closing up. Florida A&M was next door in Tallahassee, so I just had to go there for a month, find a new place. Hill is now at Arkansas, where hopefully this story ends for him, and he should be a part of the running back rotation in Arkansas. But he had a message that he wanted to share with players and young recruits coming up, and I quote, "From my perspective, I know it's your parents and stuff like that, but sometimes you've got to handle it on your own," Hill said. "Sometimes, like with my parents, I know they were trying to do the best things for me, but sometimes you've got to just take that on your own and got to do it yourself. But to other kids, I just say you don't have to get an agent right now. Just wait," end quote. So he issued that cautionary tale for young players coming up. He said, wait on an agent, and he certainly got a new agent after all this kind of popped off, but it just goes to show you we're kind of living in a new world right now with the NIL and transfer and more of the responsibility and more of the power that's afforded back to these players. It can get messy, as you see in this instance, when the players' parents are also getting involved. They want to do what's best for their son, sure, but it just caused all sorts of issues, and it is kind of a cautionary tale about the agent, but then also just growing up. Like, I love my parents. They've helped me quite a bit in life, but there are times when it's like, maybe I should have not listened to their advice in a particular area and just done things my own way. You know, it's just, you kind of have to grow up. And this is a weird story, and it's one that it sounds like Hill kind of regrets having happened in the first place. But it just, at some point in life when you're a young kid or youngster growing up, you know, get to that age where you just kind of have to grow up and figure your own life out, because it is your own life at the end of the day. Like, you want to do right by your parents. You appreciate their advice and their love and everything that they've done for you, but you get to a certain point where you just have to not necessarily go at it alone, but you have to figure out your journey alone. And so that's a weird story that I fell across this past weekend, and I just wanted to end the podcast episode with that tale about what happened to this running back, Rodney Hill, and the issues that he faced because his parents were trying to do right by him and trying to get him visibility, get him more playing time, trying to help him for the next stage in life, which I'm assuming will be the NFL for him. So, crazy story. And it's been a crazy week, it feels like. But we are 3 weeks away from the start of college football. I am so pumped for it. I hope you're excited too. And I hope this podcast helped you. I hope all my podcasts that I've been releasing at a pretty steady clip now. I've tried to be better at releasing these episodes. I hope they give you something and entertain you and you learn a little bit more. I appreciate the downloads, the support, the follows. Can't wait for college football to kick off soon. Hope you all have a great week, and I will talk to you very, very soon. Take care, everybody. Have a good one. Peace. If I were in Coach Harbaugh's shoes and had an $80 million contract as head coach of the Chargers, I wouldn't pay any attention to the findings of a kangaroo court. Thank you again for tuning into my Cherry Pickin' podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, please feel free to subscribe to my show and drop me a rating on Apple Podcasts. All of my digital content can be found at the website CherryPickinSports.com. And if you are looking to interact with me via social media, my Twitter handle is @Cherry_Pickin. That's PICKIN. On my Twitter, you'll also find a link to my blog where I post my weekly college football predictions and analysis. I can also be reached via email at CherryPickinSports@gmail.com. Please feel free to reach out to me regarding what you like about this podcast or about what content you'd like to hear more of on future episodes. I sincerely thank you for your support, and I can't wait to talk to you again soon. Take care.